Hey friends, in this video I'm going to share with you how I figured out what God wanted me to do with my life. Not a small question, but I'm hoping by sharing this with you that you'll get some insight in how you can figure out what God wants you to do with your life. And maybe in the season that you're at, you're asking those questions, you're trying to develop some clarity. I've been there, it's tough, but hopefully this video will help you. I've already laid out some of the story details of how I ended up doing daily disciple ministry in this video or this video, wherever it's going. So you can watch that video if you want some of the more play by play. I was trying to figure out what I was good at, okay? Because everyone was telling me, look, what you're good at, you should go for, right? Like if you're good at math, become an engineer. If you're good at like talking to people and like, being compassionate towards people, become a counselor. So for me, those were actually my two different things where I was like, well, I'm compassionate. I like to listen to people. I like to, be thoughtful and ask questions. So maybe I should be a counselor, or I'm pretty good at math and critical thinking and logic skills. So maybe I should be like an engineer. And so these are the two kind of spaces that I was operating in. But now, as I kind of think back and look back on that, there are actually key things that I want to look at as I'm evaluating if God wants me to do something. Okay. And so the first thing that outside of those three things, there's a must answer question, which is it sinful? So let's say you're in this scenario where you're trying to figure out if God wants you to go to Africa. Okay. Just the most extreme thing. God wants you to go to Africa to preach the gospel. Okay. Is that sinful? That's the question you need to ask yourself. No? Okay, you've passed step one, but that's the biggest thing. Is my calling to rob banks? It's like, well, probably no, it's not, because that would be sinful. That's stealing. Okay, so that's level one. Then once you get past that, we enter a fun space where we get to start evaluating, asking other people to help us evaluate where our skills are. Okay, so that's the first thing. I already talked about skills. Where are your skills? Okay. I want you to stay tuned till the end because I'm going to share something that might flip this whole thing on its head. So don't leave early because you're going to get this thing totally confused. Okay. So where are your skills? Okay. The second thing is, where are your passions? Okay. What are you passionate about? That's something that, you got to figure out. Okay. And where are your opportunities? So you have these three things. You have your skills, your passions, and your opportunities. When you're like, oh, well, I'm good at, what am I good at? I don't know. What are you good at? You're good at music. Okay. And your question is, should you play at the church worship band or for worship? Okay. You're really good at guitar. You're passionate about playing guitar, and there's an opening for the church worship team. Okay. This is pretty easy, right? Okay. Bingo right there. Okay. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pray about it and use discernment and, but this is just kind of base level, right? So here's the thing though. That's nice. But for most of us, and I think God has a way of calling people to things that they're not necessarily skilled for, that they might not even be passionate about at the time, or there might not even be an opportunity to pursue this thing at that very moment. Look, I've heard plenty of stories of people that were like called to this opportunity. Like they were like, I need to be doing this, but there's no opening here. And maybe I'm not the most skilled person about it, but I'm passionate about it. And God ends up opening a door for them and an opportunity arises. And then they end up getting more skilled at it as time goes on. So speaking from personal experience, for me, it was like, okay, I can make videos, but I'm not very good at it. Like originally it was like, I'm not that good at it. I can talk to a camera, but not that skilled at it. Okay. But there's an opportunity to do it. Anybody can do it. I have a camera, I have a computer, so I can edit videos. I can put things up on YouTube for free. Great. Okay. That's an opportunity. Was I passionate about it? At the time, yes, I was so passionate about it. But this is my caution to you, is don't write things off for the future. Okay. So don't say, I would never do that. Or I'd never go to Africa and preach the gospel. I never, be a pastor. I never like all these different things. It's like, well, really? Like, okay. The way I think about it is when I was 15, I hated reading and writing. I absolutely hated it. Like a dyslexic kid, I learned to read at like 11, 12 years old, and I just hated reading, and my writing was awful. My spelling was terrible. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that with my life. And I thought that for a long time. Flash forward, and I end up writing a book. Like, how does that happen? Right. And ultimately I have to chalk that up to God directing our steps, right? And there's this great verse. The heart of man plans his way, but it's the Lord who establishes his steps. That's Proverbs 16:9. So here's the thing. We can look at these different things. We can look at our skills, our passions, and our opportunities. We can create a game plan around those things. And I do think planning and strategizing and being responsible in those areas is important. At the same time, we shouldn't have those things so tightly in our grasp that we're not open to God moving in a different direction, right? Because ultimately God's going to do what he wants to do. And so the question for us is, well, are we going to get so obsessed with what we thought was going to happen, or are we going to actually embrace God's plan and his wonderful way he orchestrates everything? Here's my caution. Too often we're so like, oh, is this exactly what God wants me to do at this very moment? Oh my goodness, could I be going in the wrong direction? It's like, you need to be asking that first question. Is it sinful? No, it's not sinful. Okay, then chill. Like, chill. Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't be attentive to what God wants for our lives. No, of course not. Like, we should be. But at the same time, we shouldn't be so obsessive about, am I at the very perfect spot in this very moment? It's like, no, follow the pattern. If we're walking with God, if we're reading his word, if we're praying, if we're in community with people, like, opportunities are going to arise. We're going to develop skills. Passions are going to flow out of us. And so it's just like, well, try it, right? And if you don't have passions, this is a question people often, I'm sorry, this is so rambly, but people often say, hey, I don't have any passions. It's like, okay, well, begin something. It's like, if you don't know what you like, then you're going to need to try a lot of different things. And that's so fun. Like, that's so cool, because if you don't, you do it and you don't like it, then it's like, well, whatever, it doesn't matter. And if you love it, then great. This could be like your new life's passion. If you don't have any skills, of course, none of us have any skills at the beginning. Like, when we were babies, we have no skills at all. And then you grow and then you develop some skills here or there. But a lot of that has to do with, like, how you're raised and where you went to school and stuff like that. So when you become like a young adult, the world is open for you. You can develop any skill that you need to develop. So if there's an opportunity and you're passionate about it, then don't worry about all the skills aspect and all that stuff. It's like, I always like to say, presence over perfection. And that's something that I think about, like, as I'm entering this ministry, or any other thing that I'm scared of, whether that's within like my own church and serving in some way. I'm always like nervous about not performing in the way that I want to, because I'm kind of like a perfectionist and I'm like, it needs to be a certain way. But what that does is it causes me to step back from opportunities that are actually important. So my mentality right now is presence over perfection. It's better that you are present and take that opportunity and be available than try to strive after this like sense of like perfection that doesn't exist. This is the moment that you are in. You need to be available, you need to be present, and you need to give what you have, because in our weakness, God is strong. In our inadequacy, he is thoroughly adequate. Okay? He is enough for you. So be available. Don't be so clung onto this idea that you have to find the thing, because who knows? You might, it's like things are going to change, but be content in knowing that God is there for you. He's got you. And I hope you got something from this video. I'm sorry if this is a bit of a rant, but I hope you're encouraged by it. And I'll talk to you next time. God bless.